Now, there doesn't seem to be any end in sight to the strike at Transnet. Workers are standing by their demand for a wage increase of between 12 and 13%. Talks continue to drag on, with the company offering a 4 to 5%. Now, in the meantime, Transnet Port Terminal's Western Cape leaders met with members of the fruit industry, and they discussed contingency plans for exports. Let's discuss this further with Simpiwe Ngqangweni, who is the CEO of the National Agricultural Marketing Council. A very good morning to you, Dr. Simpiwe, and maybe just furnish us with some details as to some of the major pain points that have presented themselves as a result of the current undertaking of workers to strike and demand as much as they have to their employer, Transnet.
Good afternoon to you, Rafiwa, and your was at home. Thanks for having me. Actually, I'm Simpiwe Ngqangweni. Dr. Simpiwe is the CEO of the organization.
My apologies.
Apologies for that. No problem, man. No problem. So with regards to the strike with Transnet, it came at a very critical period for the agricultural industry at large, specifically for the food industry, given that it is such a sensitive industry in terms of the products. So it's important that those products, they get into their destination or their markets at a relatively timely manner. So the strike now, it came like at a very crucial period. That is why a lot of industry players now are actually anxious, because they want to make sure that those products, they are transported and then get to those markets at a relatively timely manner. And of course, it's a relatively global competitive market. So it's important that for countries like South Africa who export these products, they are being smoothly transported to those destinations.
Yes, and of course there are major financial implications, because your industry in particular deals with perishable food products. And of course, if these aren't transported in a certain amount of time, not only is that a loss to the producers, but it's also a revenue stream loss that would have occurred, because if the quality of the product deteriorates, it cannot be utilized.
Absolutely, you have very spot on. Remember that the Deciduous Fruit is one of the key employers for the South African labor. So there is around at least over somewhere around 60,000 jobs that are currently at risk, on somewhere over 250 livelihoods are currently at risk now. And of course, the producers, they have, they have incurred some cost in producing these products, and therefore, if they are to make any losses, it is going to be a dire situation for them. Not only the producers, but also those that are employed, and of course, those depend on those folks that are employed within the sector, because it's such an important sector across the country.
So in terms of an immediate kind of solution, we have heard in media reports that we are expecting government ministries to now engage Transnet and the workers to make sure that the negotiations come to some kind of finalization. But in the meantime, in terms of immediate action, what are you as an industry hoping to see as the deciduous fruit producers?
At the moment, the best scenario that the industry is hoping for, it is for the striker to actually stop. Because remember, as you correctly mentioned earlier, that we are dealing with products that are very sensitive. Also, in terms of the market that they are going to, they have to be getting there at a very good condition. Now, what we are trying, at least the industry are pushing towards working, of course, with Transnet and the government and the private sector guys, is to ensure that at least, hopefully, the strike is going to come to an end as soon as possible. Because even if maybe it is to end next week or by Friday, the important thing is that it's going to take maybe some few days again to get into its operation, and of course, it gets to operate as it was supposed to be. Because remember, these are huge bulk, products, and then it takes some time to ensure that everything is in place, and then of course they are to be transported at a relatively timely manner.
Maybe give us a sense, before the strike happened, the ports were marred by the KZN floods, the July unrest from last year, the recovery of the deciduous fruit industry and the production thereof. How has it been over the last period? Was it still in a period of regaining all those losses, or had you found that they were in a comfortable position and are plunged back into uncertainty because of the strike?
Actually, the striker is adding to a situation that was not already smooth or good, if I may put it that way. Remember, especially the citrus industry, it was going through some issues, particularly with the market in the European Union. Of course, now the certain issues with the infrastructure as well, they have been aiding or weighing to that as well. So the industry in generally is not doing very well. So therefore, any sort of losses would be very important to ensure that we minimize those as much as possible, because even in terms of the cost, it's very important to produce these goods at this time, given the current situation in the global market. So it is important that we will make sure that those products that manage to be produced, at least the producers, they make profit out of it. And of course, the folks that are employed in those, they don't lose their livelihoods, because remember, we're going to the festival season, and this time normally the industry is very busy in terms of us exporting our products and of course receiving those that we are not producing in large quantities. So it's important not only for us to export and of course to also receive the goods that we need for our consumption domestically.
And tell us about those key markets that you are exporting to currently, just so we can gauge the importance of their contribution to our GDP growth and understand that the strike really will have dire consequences on our economy with that lost revenue that you've just alluded to.
So with regards to fruit in generally, the biggest market for South Africa, it has traditionally been the European Union, or the countries that are all in Europe. But of course, as I mentioned, the issue that specifically with the citrus industry, that's one industry that has been experiencing issues. But most of our fruit, it is generally going to Europe. Of course, some is going to Africa, a little bit into countries like towards Asia. And of course, there's still some talks in terms of the country expanding more to the Asian market. But most of our products, in particular fruit, are going to the European Union.